Hello everybody, it's Crystal and this is Crystal Key. Today I have my friend Dan with me.
Hello.
And Dan and I recently went on a trip to California and we took the newly released LG G5, took a bunch of pictures, and we also brought some other phones, some other flagships, the iPhone 6s Plus and the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, and we took pictures with them as well, just to see how well the G5 does compared to these other phones.
So we're going to put all three pictures side by side, and whoever took the picture is going to point out things to look for, the differences and similarities. And really all three cameras take amazing pictures. One's not necessarily better than the other, so it all comes down to preference.
Yeah, we'll be giving our opinions, but it really comes down to what you guys, each and every one of you, prefer. So please leave in the comments below letting us know. And yeah, let's get right into it. First, let's start off with these HDR shots of someplace in Hollywood Boulevard. These shots are very similar and probably have the least amount of differences compared to the rest of the photos, but these shots well represent the main characteristics of each phone's camera. Now let's zoom in into the palm trees. The iPhone 6s Plus has the softest image with not much post-processing sharpening going on, but that's not a bad thing. It does look very nice. The LG G5 is truly the sharpest, and that's mostly due to the 16 megapixel sensor, which is the largest sensor of the three, so the G5 can create these sharp images without using any software sharpening. And the Galaxy S7 has the most software sharpening and boosts the colors a lot, usually giving subjects a brighter tone. The iPhone does the best job at showing the blueness of the sky, and with this less contrasty image, you have a very well exposed photo. But when we zoom into this Dave & Buster's sign, the iPhone and S7 appear too soft. They're all great photos and are very similar, but the great colors and sharpness of the G5 help it a lot here. Here's another similar shot in around the same area. Now there's a lot going on, so it's hard to see the differences, but right off the bat, one thing you'll notice is that extra vibrance and brightness of colors found in the Galaxy S7. Take a look at those palm trees. Now if we zoom into these trees and this engraving on the wall, you'll clearly see once again the LG G5 definitely has the most detail. Look at the grooves inside the wings and also the individual leaves of the palm tree. You can barely see these in the iPhone and the S7, but still most people don't zoom into their photos that much, so the details from far away equally look as good. And from far away, while all pictures are fantastic and well exposed, we both like the S7 more here.
Oh my goodness, would you look at this? Here's a picture I took of Crystal sniffing some flowers. All three did a great job at exposing the sky and the foreground, but the iPhone did the best job overall, I think, especially if you look at the house in the background. Once again, we have a much more contrasty image on the S7. You can really notice this when you look at Crystal's hair towards the back of her head. And even when we zoom into the flowers, some of the leaves on the S7 are really black, losing lots of detail. But on the iPhone and the G5, you can see them perfectly. Lots of differences in colors happening here too. So the G5 is the coolest of the three, with the S7 being the warmest. And like all of these pictures, the G5 has the most detail and is the sharpest. Even when we zoom out, I do think the G5 has the more preferable image with the cooler colors. And by the way, here's what it looks like when you use the wide-angle lens on the G5. Good stuff.
Here's a nighttime shot at the Grove in Los Angeles. Now finally, we have some big differences with these photos. The iPhone is very dull without much color and brightness. The S7 looks very good but has a very orange hue to it, but it's still quite bright. And the G5 by far looks the best. Colors are vibrant, the photo is bright, and the color temperature seems to be perfect. It even exposes the sky well enough that you can see the dark blue of the night. Now when we zoom in, you'll see the S7 really loses its detail, whereas the G5 and iPhone have a great amount. The G5 beats the iPhone and the S7 by miles on this one. But when we switch to the lower megapixel wide-angle lens, it's pretty bad. Taking low light shots with a wide-angle lens is not the best idea. Here's a tree that was also at the Grove that amplifies my previous thoughts even more. The iPhone is crazy dark with dull colors, the S7 is bright but has a nasty warm tint to it, and the G5, although clips in the highlights, has great colors and overall brightness. Seeing the blueness to the dusk sky really captures what it was like to be there at night. And of course, zooming in shows that the G5 is on a whole other level when it comes to detail.
Here's a shot I took indoors around evening time, so it wasn't the best lit area, and you'll notice the G5 is by far the most saturated. You can see that when you look at the hound dog's face or even Crystal's face. I'm not sure if I'd like that or not. It seems maybe a bit too saturated. It looks a little unnatural with human skin. The S7 seems to have the best colors, not too saturated or too dull, but once again the contrast is a little bit too high, so there's really no detail at all when you look at things like Crystal's hair or the three boxes stacked underneath the table in the back. The iPhone is exposed nicely, and even though the colors could use a bit of a bump, it's the most natural representation. I'd say it's a toss-up between the iPhone and the G5. Here's a picture I took of our friend in Malibu, and the picture I took with the LG G5 is probably my favorite picture I've ever taken with a smartphone. I had HDR on all of these, but the G5 outperformed the others by a huge margin. The sky is so much more blue in the G5's picture, and the colors are crazy vibrant. I was able to get a lot more information in the shot, mostly due to that 16:9 aspect ratio, and in terms of detail, there is no comparison.
Now let's get into the front-facing cameras of these phones. They all look great, but you'll notice that the iPhone doesn't have as wide of a lens as the others, so there's not much space above my head and below my purse, and that could be a problem when trying to get group shots. It's also more dark than the others. The S7 definitely has the widest angle of the three, which is perfect for group shots. The LG G5 has lots of saturation in the colors, once again maybe a bit too much, making my skin look very orange, but overall it's still a great shot. The blue in the sky looks much more rich compared to the sky on the Galaxy S7, and you have a lot more detail in the shadows. This extra boost in contrast on the S7 doesn't really hurt the image here though. It actually makes it look nice in its own way. But still, the G5 has a lot going for it, so I'd say it beats the S7 just by a tad.
This picture of us two really shows which camera you'd want to have if you're somebody who loves taking group photos. The S7 has no problem fitting Crystal's entire upper body in the shot, and mine as well. Now, it's definitely not the sharpest or has the most detail. In fact, it's dead last when it comes to that, but the exposure is definitely the best when you take a look at the leaves and the branches at the top, and it has a more natural hue to the G5 or iPhone. When it comes to selfies, it's really hard not to crown the S7 a winner.
And now let's get into video. Even though all three cameras have optical image stabilization, the iPhone 6s Plus by far uses it the best. It's super smooth and isn't even comparable to the G5 or S7. It looks like the iPhone is on a Steadicam compared to the others. The G5 actually appears to be in last when it comes to this. Even when talking about quality, the iPhone is also on top. The G5's contrast is cranked up to the max, delivering some very unappealing images. And you can really see this if you look at the trees and the soil beneath it. And the bitrate doesn't appear to be the best either, causing a lot of this nasty pixelation. The S7 also suffers from these same problems, but they're much less severe. It is cool though that you can use the G5's wide-angle camera to record video, but it's even more shaky. What we've learned here today is that the iPhone creates very natural looking photos with less contrast, creating a soft image, but it's usually exposed very well with nice dynamic range, although it suffers a lot in low light. The selfie camera could use a wider lens, and the video it takes is the best on a smartphone. The S7 adds a lot of contrast, so you're going to be losing lots of details in the shadows and sometimes in the highlights, but the selfie cam, although it doesn't capture a lot of detail, creates great wide-angle shots with nice color temperature. The LG G5 always takes the most detailed shot, has beautiful colors, although it can be too much sometimes, but the HDR it has is the best on the smartphone, creating some amazing shots in extreme lighting conditions. In low light, it is by far the winner, and it has a whole extra camera with a wide-angle lens, which is a lot of fun to use.
So those are our opinions, but of course, it's all subjective and we're curious to see what you guys think. So leave a comment below telling us what camera you think did the better job.
We put some cool looking black matte skins on our phones here.
Oh my.
So if you're interested, I'll link to the D-brand skins I used in the description.
Real nice.
Yeah, and that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like because that really helps out, and subscribe for more videos like this. Follow us on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter if you want to. And we'll see you later.